It was a weekend of high drama on the Hauraki Gulf. American Magic capsized, but Patriot is saved from sinking. They now face a race against the clock. Ineos Team UK, an impressive start, 4 from 4, top of the table. And world champion sailor Phil Robertson talks to Cherie Kinnear about how sailors prepare for the worst in the event of capsize. Welcome to the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. I'm Matt Brown. We have an all-star cast for you this afternoon. American Magic flight controller Andrew Campbell joins us, and Freddie Carr, Ineos Team UK grinder, and of course our resident sailing expert, AUT sailing professor Mark Orams. This is Beyond the Cup. Well, Andrew, thanks again for joining us. What a roller coaster for you guys. How are the repairs going on Patriot?
Yeah, well, it's a beehive in our shed right now. You can rest assured the guys are in there. Everybody from our team is doing everything they can, and some things that they're learning how to do to try and help the boat get back together. Quite a few members of other teams, boat building squads, have been through to help us and kind of assess what's going on and provide feedback and what they can from their programs. And it's been unbelievable how wide ranging the support has been from across the teams that are here, from across the boat building facilities that are here in New Zealand, and everybody's been pitching in.
And how did you see the incident unfold from your perspective on the boat?
I'm in the front seat, so I saw the whole thing happen as close as it gets. I don't take any, it's not a great feeling being the highest guy on board in those moments. So we knew that we were going to have a hard maneuver going around the top. We knew that we had to get around that mark and into the biggest puff of the day. That's the only direction we could be going. And when we did get around the top and we knew that we were on our ear a little bit and heeled over, it was going to be a hard way to get through the power zone, and we didn't quite managed to get the rudder through that turn.
Freddie Carr, I'll bring you in here because you had gone back to base after your race, but some of your team were out there helping, and just from your perspective, when you saw it unfold, what sort of went through your mind?
Oh, it was a super funny day for us. Obviously, we were really happy to have got a win against Prada, but you sober up pretty quickly when you saw what was going on to our American neighbours, and we hit the dock and we walked up the dock and we watched them going up their last upwind, and then we're like, okay, let's just get out of our sailing kit. So went in the showers and we heard like a massive gasp, and from all the hospitality area outside, so you kind of nip out the showers, and man, it was a really, really sad sight to see. And then we saw some remaining American Magic shore crew scurrying around on the dock getting some bits together to go out, and we were like, come on, jump in our rib, and we went out with our kind of, I guess you'd say, our best seamen, the guys who have done a lot of Volvo stuff and a lot of guys who are really handy on the tools, and they gunned it out there to help where they could. But it was it was pretty sobering, and the whole 100 team members then went into mission control and effectively watched the live feed on Live Sail Die, and we were there for 2 hours just praying they kept the boat together, and just immensely proud really of these guys getting the boat back as the first responders, but like the America's Cup community and helping those guys out. And yeah, it was a sad day, but now super happy to see that they're on their way back to being fixed.
So delighted to have the opportunity to ask questions of you guys. Been very excited. I've got a whole notebook full of them. But the first one's for you, Andrew, and that's around the flight control role that you have. So could you just explain for us what you do on the boat for people who are not familiar with the AC-75s, and then I'd like to follow it up with what your role is in a difficult manoeuvre like attack bear-away that led to the capsize.
It's a good question. It's kind of a new role. It's a developing role, in the America's Cup. It's a new role in sailing, and when you look across the 4 teams that are here, each of the teams holds and handles the role in a different way. Freddie and the guys next door have a lot of hands on flight control, from what we can tell. each team has its own sharing of the responsibilities, and we've pushed pretty hard on our program to try and reduce the impact that the flight control has on the other sailors on board. And so my position on board is in one position on the boat. I don't cross the boat. I sit on the starboard side. I have my little station there, and I run all 3 flight surfaces on board. So the 2 foils, the rudder, the cant of those surfaces, that's all under my kind of umbrella. And so I'm making sure that those are running in optimum shapes as much as possibly can, and are keeping the boat, in an optimum position as best we can around the racetrack.
Wow, so you've got a lot on there. You're controlling multiple things all at once. And so that interaction between something like the elevator, which is the foil on the bottom of the rudder, and the pitch control of that versus the cant and the flat control on the main foils, how do those things interact, and what sort of interface are you able to use to manage that interaction?
Yeah, it'd be easier if I could show you the interface. Yeah. So a lot of people had eyes on it the other day. And it's just one of those things, like you say, the competitive part goes out the window when everybody's climbing all over your boat all of a sudden. But it's funny, for so long you keep these things secret, and then everything's all wide open when you need the help the help you can get. The interface that I have allows me to control all those surfaces at once, and in any maneuver, I'm not only reacting to the boat speed and the attitude of the boat, but also how the sails and the helm are affecting the changes to that attitude. So I have to make those adjustments constantly.
We'll have more from Andrew Campbell and Freddie Carr very soon. But first, Cherie Kinnear has been chatting to one of our experts, world champion sailor Phil Robertson, about preparing for those worst-case scenarios.
Sailing fans around the world will have been holding their breath when American Magic's Patriot went flying up into the air before crashing down and capsizing on day 3 of the Prada Cup. Someone who knows how that feels all too well is world champion sailor Phil Robertson. You've had your fair few experiences capsizing?
Yeah, I've definitely done a few, and that's, I guess, the nature of the sport now. It's getting faster, it's getting less stable. We've got rid of keels, so the boats are going to tip over, and they're going to do it at speed as well. So yeah, the dangers are becoming apparent, and yeah, it's exciting. It's not so fun at the time, but yeah, they're definitely one experience you remember.
Talk me through some of the training that you do, because I'm sure this is something that you actually do prepare for.
Yeah, one thing that's very real now is the safety factor of it, and where everyone's wearing impact vests now in sort of that high speed sport. So impact vests, we all carry knives. I think when Sail GPI racing, we carry 2 knives and an oxygen, which lasts between 1 minute and 3 minutes, depending on how composed you can get yourself if you are trapped underwater. So we go through a bit of training before each season and a few refresher courses as well, and it's interesting. You kind of have some big bullies out there that like to try and drown you, and I guess one training exercise we go through is getting your heart rate really high. So burpees on the dock into some shuttle runs and burpees, and at any moment one of the divers will just push you in, and another one will hold you underwater while they sort of tug on your harness and try to stitch you up a bit, and you've got to be able to just compose yourself with your heart rate through the roof and a lack of oxygen in your body, and then make sure you can get your oxygen off you, get it in your mouth, blow all the water out of it, and get to your knife as well, and unclip yourself and get yourself free. So yeah, you can spend up to a few minutes underwater if you're really good, and the trick is just not to panic. So it's just training those reflexes, and yeah, trying not to freak out in that situation.
Well, that's a great example of the sailing preparation that the guys go through for those really difficult situations. And don't forget, our radio coverage features PJ Montgomery, the doyen of America's Cup commentary, and Chris Steele on Gold AM and iHeartRadio, live coverage of every race in the Prada Cup and the America's Cup match. Andrew, Dean Barker, obviously a huge name in New Zealand, key component to your team, I'm sure a mate, but how's he coped before this? Because I know, Dean will be feeling like everyone else, won't he? I mean, it's tough on all of you. How is Dean?
Yeah, he's good. He wears these situations harder than anybody. He puts this pressure on himself to make sure that he's going to go out and execute on the day the way he knows how and the way we know he can. So there's no doubt that at the end of the day, these things kind of come down to the guy in the helm, and to make the final call, to make the final decision. We in the afterguard have a responsibility to make sure that we help him make good decisions, And I feel like we did, and we will continue to do so. The guy has an unbelievable amount of experience, and we have the total confidence that he will continue to make good decisions to get us around the race course, not only safely, but in places where we can win.
Well, Ineos Team UK are 4 from 4. They've turned it around from that disastrous Christmas regatta or pre-Christmas regatta. Freddie Carr, how have you turned it around?
Yeah, we painted our foils black, and that's about it, to be honest. No, I'm joking. I mean, we were in a bit of a pickle after the Christmas event. We had some things going on that actually going into the Christmas event we were aware of. We knew that was going to be a tough weekend, and it proved to be. But it wasn't the Christmas event that defined us. It was like the week after that, leading up to the Christmas day itself and into New Year's Day. We had 2 weeks there to really sort ourselves out and not let our chins hit the floor, and keep the energy going in the group, keep the design group up, keep the sailing group up, and we made some good changes to the boat. As you can see, we're going faster fundamentally, and as Andrew and I were talking about earlier, it just takes a couple of small tweaks to a few things, and everything falls into place, and you find a little bit of extra boat speed, and you're in the game. And I think that's fundamentally what we've done.
It appears to me that Terry Hutchinson's been pretty inspirational in talking to his team to pick them up. How inspirational has Sir Ben Ainsley been for you guys?
Hugely so. He leads from the front. He didn't get too despondent after the Christmas regatta, and right now he's not too up. He's seen it all in the sailing game before, and there's a few of us that were with him on the last journey in Bermuda. And 6 months to go in Bermuda, we weren't exactly on fire in our AC50, and we had a hard program leading up into the racing in Bermuda, where we effectively won our first lineup on the morning of our first race against Artemis, and then went on to win that first race, which no one expected. And I think that learning from 4 years ago put the core group in a really good mindset to take on this challenge. And we've taken everyone else with us, and I think that's the result of what you're seeing now.
Yeah, we've got really strong teams here, obviously, and you just talked about the pressure you guys were under, and there's nobody more critical than the British press, right? And then things were starting to turn against you guys before Christmas, and it seems that as a team you came together, and so Ben talked about a siege mentality. Is that sort of what it felt like under pressure within the team? Yeah,
there was some pressure, but the biggest pressure was on ourselves. No doubt. We ignore all the press, to be fair. The only thing I dial in with is friends and family coming, sort of going comms up from back home, wishing us all the best. That's amazing, as I'm sure all the teams get, massive amount of support. But we ignore the press. And the biggest pressure is from ourselves. We're hugely disappointed with where we were at the beginning of December, and we knew we had 6 weeks to do something about it. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a sort of a recipe, I guess, for American Magic as well. And you guys have got a really strong team, Andrew, and it's one of those things, I think, when a team comes under pressure, you've got a couple of choices, haven't you? You can either sort of fracture and start to point the finger at one another, or you can come together, and it seems to me that you guys are coming together, and others are wanting you to come together and do well. Is that how it feels inside the team?
For sure, that's how it feels. I think we're really fortunate with the schedule working out like it has, that we're still able to live to fight another day, quite literally. So we're gonna push through and make these next 10 days count, so we'll be ready for the semi-final.
Freddie, the grinding role on Ineos Team UK, it's quite different to the other teams, not as many.
Yeah, not as many. We try and grind, provide the power into the boat with 6 grinders. So everything below the water, all the stuff that Andrew does, is powered by batteries. So the 2 dagger boards and the rudder is powered by batteries, and then everything above the hull, the sails, is powered by the grinders. And a lot of the teams we've seen grinding with 7 or 8 grinders, depending how involved their kind of 8th guy is, and we are sort of trotting along with 6 guys, trying to free up the talent a little bit at the back of the boat, the Sherpas, as we call ourselves on Ineos. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's fascinating, the decision that Ineos Team UK made to put their grinding stations athwartship, so across the boat rather than fore and aft like the other 3 teams. So can you explain the thinking that led to that, and what advantage you obviously think that it gives you?
Yeah, well there's 2 things. Sort of where the crew weight was going to go on the boat was one of the big things, and the other thing was how much power you can get grinding forwards versus backwards, and how much power you can get sharing a pedestal to having your own individual pedestal. So the biggest driver was to get the boat going as fast as possible. So that's crew weight distribution. We wanted to push our crew weight as close to the foil arms as possible, you know, really unload the back of the boat. So that's the reason that everybody's squashed right up towards that 9 metre line, which within the rule you can't sail in front of. And then as soon as we made the decision to go single pedestal grinding for the extra power, we believe it's about 20% more powerful grinding forwards, just grinding forwards than just grinding backwards. And everyone was going to have their own pedestals. The obvious choice was to rotate them to push everyone forwards towards that 9 metre line as much as possible. So that, in a nutshell, is how we've ended up with our slightly different look to the other teams.
Yeah, it makes sense. But you've just talked about a potential 20% ergonomic efficiency gain with regard to the athwartships pushing kind of technique, but you've got 2 less guys doing it. Yeah. So I'm really curious about the sports science approach, and obviously Ineos as your major sponsor has a major role with the professional cycling team and the Tour de France and so on. Is there things that have crossed over from Ineos's work in sports science sense with that level of another elite sport?
Yeah, 100%. We sit underneath the Ineos sports umbrella, and our head of human performance, Ben Williams, works with Tim Kerrison from the cycling side of things. And although there's not much translation, although that we are spinning our arms rather than spinning our legs, in terms of the mechanics of the boat, we haven't taken much off the bikes at all. But in terms of the training, particularly during lockdown in the UK, which ran for spring in 2020, when we're all shut in at home, we adopted like a real similar training strategy as the cyclists did. And I think during that 3-month period, we made a fitness gain to be basic that has allowed us to sail with 2 less grinders that we're seeing now, which basically allows our equivalent of Andrew, which is Lee McMillan and Luke Parkinson. They do the job that Andrew does for us, 1 side each. And then I think the biggest thing it does is it frees up Giles Scott. As you'd have seen in the racing this weekend, he kind of cruises around the back of the boat talking about the wind, which is his talent, and it paid dividend this weekend. I think all 3 teams are actually really similar in pace, and on that course C, Giles came into his own for us.
Well, it is a contrasting build-up, or the next week for you guys in the Prada Cup. It's round robin 3 and 4 this weekend. Ineos Team UK, 4 points. Luna Rossa 2, and of course American Magic not on the start line this weekend while they get that Patriot fixed. So it's a fascinating couple of races for you guys, because you need 1 more point. If Luna Rossa beat you twice, then they will go through to the Challenger final by virtue of winning the latest race, or the last race in the round robin against each other. So a huge couple of races against the Italians.
Yeah, I mean they're all massive races regardless of what the sort of outcome is and what it means. It's been an amazing sort of weekend so far. I mean, it's going to be 2 really tough races against Prada this weekend. There's no doubt, and what will be. And the scary thing for both us and Prada is just how quick these guys were going before their incident on Sunday. I mean, they were ripping out there, you know. And when they get their boat back on the water, you don't want to be facing American Magic in the semi-final. I mean, it's certainly going to be a cracking couple of weeks of racing.
I think it's a remarkable thing that we have a new America's Cup class for this edition, 36th edition of the America's Cup. And of course, because of COVID, you didn't have the chance to check in with version 1 of the boats or version 2 of the boats. So the first time you ever got to sail against another AC75 was immediately prior to Christmas, just over a month ago. And yet we seem to have, even with different design solutions for the AC75, boats that are remarkably similar in speed. Is that something that you expected? Is it something that you sort of came in with complete no anticipation, or what was your mindset, and how do you see it, Andrew?
Sure. I mean, you know, each of these teams has an incredibly strong design squad. You look around and you see where certain people in certain organizations are going to be able to contribute in ways that are going to make boats really strong in specific conditions, and every boat's going to have their day, and that's exactly what you've seen. You know, some boats are stronger in some conditions, some boats are stronger in others, but generally we're all pretty competitive. And you know, when people said that Ineos was in such a bad way before Christmas, every single person who was racing in this regatta knew that they were going to be competitive come, you know, the first event, the first couple of days of the Prada Cup. So nobody was surprised by that. Once you get the sailing teams an opportunity to go out and execute on the water, you're going to see good racing, and that's what the sailors are here to do. We finally have equipment that we know we can go out and push hard and try and race against each other, and so we're getting good racing because of it. But the fact that we've got so many different solutions to the same problem is really incredible, and I think it's definitely a testament to how many months we've had to develop these things in isolation to say, hey, we've gotten actually quite far down the line towards the optimums of these platforms to really push them hard. But time will tell when we get to line up with the Kiwis, honestly, because that's the ultimate assessment of how we're going. And we may look competitive now, but those guys are sharp, and we need to be going a lot faster between now and then to make sure we beat them.
Yeah, Freddie, coming in, have you been surprised at how close the boats are? I mean, obviously you were off the pace before Christmas, but since the Prada Cup started, it seems to me that actually good sailing wins the yacht races as opposed to out-and-out boat speed.
Yeah, I completely agree, Mark. And my big worry as a sort of sailing fan, let alone someone who's involved with the America's Cup, was that we were going to have a cup that could really look like the San Fran Cup in 13. Now, the San Fran Cup in 13 is remembered for one of the greatest sporting comebacks in history, and the match itself was amazing. But before that, it wasn't great, was it? The Challenger Series really wasn't great, and I was just like, oh, we're back in that same world. We've got 3 challengers in a new class of boat, and 2 years ago I was thinking, man, the speed differences could be huge here, and the racing might not be great. And I'm so glad I was wrong, because honestly, what we've seen this weekend, I reckon, is the best America's Cup racing I've seen probably since the version 5 stuff in 2007, where on any given day anyone could beat anyone, and that's what it feels like.
We've got a couple of thrilling races, I'm sure, this weekend. Just a reminder too, you can listen to PJ Montgomery and Chris Steele live radio coverage on iHeartRadio and Gold AM. The New Zealand Herald will have preview shows and review shows after every race, on every race day. Mark Orum's a key feature of that. Well, we are out of time. Andrew Campbell, American Magic, thanks so much for coming along. Incredible to see you guys out there again next week. Can't wait to see that boat back on the course. Freddie Carr from Ineos Team UK, thanks too. You're going great guns at the moment. Looking forward to this weekend's racing. And of course, our AUT sailing professor, Mark Oram. This has been Beyond the Cup. See you next time.